What's going on, fishy friends? Rich here, Rich's Fishes, and today I realize I really need a haircut. What's up, guys? Alright, so somebody is probably wondering why the hell I'm talking about my hair and the fact that I need a haircut. But it sort of coincides with what I want to talk about today and just how freaking busy I've been lately. If you followed along, you know I've undertaken quite a few projects. I've got big plans to work on the fish room and have to keep putting those plans on hold. I'm doing a kitchen renovation. I have some work done already and I keep adding more and more to my plate, and I've just been so busy. As you can tell, I haven't even had a chance to make it to a barber in far too long. Maybe I'll use this as an opportunity for a new hairstyle, maybe a little something different. That's besides the point. I am busting my ass trying to renovate this kitchen. Last year I did a bunch of work in the kitchen, which involved painting my kitchen cabinets, installing a new countertop, installing a kitchen sink, a Kohler lifetime warranty, cast iron kitchen sink that was guaranteed never to break, chip, crack, burn, yada yada yada, and I got a freaking chip in it already. So that's another part of the project I'm going to have to deal with. That was last year's project. This year's project involved... It started with needing a new refrigerator. This is hard to backtrack here. So, to get a new refrigerator, I needed to remove a soffit that was above the old fridge, which required removing some cabinets, and that turned into, well, geez, why don't I demo two out of the four walls in the kitchen, essentially. There's a whole lot of corners and curves. It's not really a square room, so for the sake of simplicity, we'll say 2 out of the 4 walls in the kitchen were completely ripped out, down to the bare studs. Had to redo a whole bunch of electrical, got new sheetrock hung, got all the joints taped, all the corners done, got one coat of spackle on the wall. And that's what I've been doing the past couple weeks. Then this past weekend, I had to quickly remove an old chain link fence along the side of my property and reinstall a brand new chain link fence. Now, I've never done fencing before in my life, so I figured I'd give it a whirl. And I got about 110 linear feet of black chain link fence installed at the house. Well, that's a lie. I got 110 feet of the line posts and the terminal posts and things like that. I got about 80 feet of the chain link fabric actually hung and stretched. I got a gate up. All the posts have been dug, and now I just got to hang the fabric along the short 20-some-odd foot run. Maybe this weekend. Last weekend was beautiful in New York. It was 60, almost 70 degrees one day. It did get a little chilly the next day. But tomorrow's Friday, right? Today's Thursday, which would make tomorrow Friday. Yeah, I remember the days of the week. I'm so smart. SMRT. And this weekend, well, tomorrow, Friday, we're forecasted for a bit of snow. It's not supposed to be much. It's going to be some kind of slushy mess, maybe a coating. And it's supposed to be downright freezing again this weekend, so I'm probably not going to want to go outside and finish any work out there, which is good because I still got a boatload of work to do in the kitchen. So besides all the electrical that I did, all the sheetrock, all the mudding and the taping, now I decided I think it's about time to demo the old tile floor. And it's quite a lot of floor space, and it's a good 2 inches of mud on top of a wooden floor, on top of a subfloor before the tile is there. A couple of days ago I started demoing some of that, and some of it came up real nice and easy, and I was quite surprised, so I ran out and ordered a dumpster and got a dumpster over to the house. Well, apparently I started on a section that was added in after the fact and was not done nearly as well as the rest of the floor, because once I got past one small little section, which was easy, the rest of the floor is turning into a nightmare. So hopefully tomorrow I can spend the majority of the day demoing, and then when I'm done with that, there'll probably be a little more demo, and then I'll have to keep removing tile floor when that's all done. So I don't see any end in sight anytime soon, and once the floor is done, then I got to get back to spackling the walls, sanding, spackling. Eventually there can be a coat of paint up there, and then all the custom woodwork needs to start. I got to cut trim, I got to create a couple of little decorative beam post things. Looks like we want to do some sort of semi-permanent bench in the room on the back side of the kitchen table, so I'll have to start designing and building something like that. So, why, might you ask, is a guy whose YouTube channel, predominantly about fish tanks, is talking about his ridiculously long hair and overdue haircut and talking about work to the kitchen and how busy he is? Well, all that work in the kitchen and my super busy schedule the past couple of weeks has really led to me not having nearly as much time as I would like for maintenance down in the fish room. So I did get down here yesterday and did a ton of big water changes, but I'm skimping on a couple of little things. I'm not scrubbing the bottom of the bare bottom tanks. I'm not scrubbing the glass on the tanks. I'm sticking to just water changes right now, sort of keeping it at a bare minimum. Now, I'm a big fan of big water changes frequently, especially in my discus tanks. My juvenile discus, I aim for a 50% water change daily in this tank. And these fish are actually doing really well now. They're growing out quite nice. They're putting on some size. They're starting to round off. There's that one little stunted guy compared to all the rest. His shape isn't perfect. His eye to body ratio isn't correct. You can see the eye looks a little bigger on that fish than on the rest of the fish. And these ended up being like a high fin or a high body, I think they call them, which was unexpected. But they are putting on a nice shape. Their patterns are really, really beautiful. The coloration on them is fantastic. These came from Eric over at Carolina Discus. And I'm quite happy with how they've been growing out. I got them as young juveniles. I really enjoy the idea of purchasing juvenile discus. It is quite the cost savings. And so long as you're not afraid of a little hard work, you can really reap the rewards of getting some nice, big, beautiful discus at a relatively cheap price. But that requires a ton of water changes. These fish really should get moved up into a bigger tank, which I've been contemplating for a while and just haven't gotten around to. But overall, the fish are doing fantastic. I'm very excited to see what these guys are going to turn into as they keep growing, and we'll see what they can do. These guys over here I had purchased as really small juveniles as well, and there was a point in time when they looked similar to the size and shape of these guys, and since they've really grown out in some real nice, big, beautiful round discus. Unfortunately, they are pigeon blood discus, and they do show that peppering, that black spottiness across the body, which is my least favorite trait when it comes to discus. I really dislike the way that looks, and I wish they didn't have as much. There's some theories on how to prevent it, well, not prevent it, but how to lessen the severity of it. A dark substrate and a dark background tends to bring out more peppering in certain fish. But as you can see, I have a relatively light background. I have no substrate. The bottom is painted brown with a textured brown paint that actually kind of looks like sand, which I always thought was cool. But obviously, their peppering is not a result of a dark background. I got a light blue background and a light brown bottom. But I do plan on taking these two fish eventually. I've been saying this forever. And likely moving them over here into this 55-gallon with his 3 other discus. I got 2 relatively nice red Turks and 1 really stunted, I don't want to say deformed, but a really good example of what you shouldn't buy if you see something in a fish store. The shape of that fish is just not right for a discus. The body to eye size ratio is just incorrect, and it's just a good example of a stunted discus. Doesn't mean it's unhealthy. It just means it's not necessarily as coveted as some other discus. It's not winning any beauty prizes. It's not winning any best of show contests or anything like that, but it's perfectly healthy, and it's been living, I don't know, at least 2 years or so in my fish room with no issues. But those 2 I just showed you behind me, I plan on moving over into this tank, and that way I can move all the Tiger Turks from this 29-gallon tank over here into this 38-gallon tank, and slowly but surely move them up into bigger tanks and more tank space. Then the third discus out of that group is the one I've been treating for quite a long time for some issue that I can't confirm what it is. The fish is no better, no worse. I've done 2 full courses of treatment of this Maricin 2 and Maricin Oxy. I've also done 3 full courses of API erythromycin and API General Cure, and the fish looks no better, the fish looks no worse. I'm starting to think it's just sort of an anomaly on the fish. This was the fish, if you followed along on my channel, well, all of a sudden I noticed one of his gills was clamped and was only breathing hard out of one gill. And every once in a while I would notice that it looked a little better and both gills seemed to be working in unison, and then a couple of days later it would be back to normal. And I don't know, it's been months now and I see no improvement. I don't see the fish getting any worse. I've tried more water changes and more medicines. I've tried less water changes and less medicines. I've tried Indian almond leaves. I've tried only having the tank half full. I've tried different temperatures. Nothing changes anything. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to dedicate a hero fish. I'm going to have to put another discus into this tank with this guy and see if the other discus displays any odd symptoms. It's possible that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the fish that's contagious to others, and I'd be perfectly okay moving it around to other tanks, but I've been unwilling to do that until I know for sure what's going on with it. So I wish I had a better understanding of what I was dealing with and what the diagnosis actually was and what in the hell I could do to actually fix it, but I can't, so I'm just going to keep trying different things to see if anything changes, and hopefully sooner or later I get a confirmation of what's going on. Now, a couple of minutes ago, I just came down into the fish room and noticed I got an issue here on one of my epistogramma tanks. This is the tank with the epistogramma trifasciata, and the thermometer is reading 73.9 degrees. I typically keep this tank between 80 and 84 degrees, and luckily the fish is still alive, but I am very concerned that it's stressing out, and likely there's a good chance it can end up getting sick because of the temperature drop. Epistogramma like warmer water, and I think that heater failed on me. The light is on. It's a Marineland Visitherm, I think it's called. I've had a few of these fail on me in the past. I guess I'm lucky in the sense that it failed in the off position and not the on position, so at least it didn't cook the fish. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that Epistogramma trifasciata, and I am going to throw it into this tank over here with that other Epistogramma, which was initially sold to me as a Cockatoides triple red, and I was very reluctant to admit that's what it could be. Had it for quite a while. It's been quite a slow grower, and it is finally starting to develop some color back there on that dorsal fin. I'm still not 100% sure it's a Cockatoides triple red, or a double red, or an orange flash for that matter. I'm just not 100% sure it's a Cockatoides. I'm not exactly sure how to make that determination. I'm also not exactly sure if it's a good idea to combine different species of Epistogramma, but I'm going to roll the dice and take that risk right now and add the trifasciata that's up here to the Cockatoides that's down here and hope for the best, because at least this tank, as you can see from my thermometer where the battery died, is, oh yeah, definitely, 82 degrees. Human thermometer at your service. But no, in all seriousness, I can tell from feeling this tank compared to feeling this tank that this tank up here is, it might as well be ice cold. The shrimp tank over here reads 66.2 degrees. That's definitely not correct. That thermometer just reads wrong. But the shrimp tank is my coolest tank in the entire fish room. The fish room tends to hover around 80 to 82 degrees on a normal basis. Well, maybe that's a lie. Over here, the farthest away from my fish tanks, I'm reading 77 degrees Fahrenheit and about 42% humidity. It's amazing to me how inaccurate all these devices can be. What did I say? 42% humidity? 42% humidity. The dehumidifier is reading 40% humidity. Actually, those are pretty close. I think yesterday the dehumidifier here was reading 55% humidity, and that humidistat behind me was reading something like 35% humidity. Then when you come around the corner over here this way, this thermometer says it's about 80 to 82 degrees. Oh, and it's reading about 45 to 48% humidity as well. So all are reading pretty close. But it's roughly 80 to 82 degrees for the most part in the majority of this room. Now most of that is due to the fact that I heat all the tanks with in-tank heaters, and the ambient air of the room is being heated by the evaporating water off all the tanks. It's not necessarily that the room itself is that warm, because like I said, I'm able to keep some tanks cooler than 80 degrees. Like I said, this tank that's reading 66.2, it's definitely incorrect. It's probably in the 72 to 75 range, which is about where I want to keep these cherry shrimp. I also keep the Endlers down here a little bit cooler than a lot of my other tanks too. Let's see, is this battery dead yet? Nope, this one's reading 77.7. Somebody go play those numbers in Lotto. 777, gotta be lucky. So even though the room stays at 80 to 82, some of these tanks can stay a little bit cooler, and I chalk it up to the fact that the room itself is not really 80 to 82, but it is being heated to that temperature from all the other tanks. So, I'm going to go ahead. I'll take this probe out of the Episto tank, drop it into the shrimp tank. Let's see what the shrimp tank's really reading. It actually takes a couple of seconds for a thermometer to adjust. I bet you that's going to go up a tiny bit. Oh, it's going down a tiny bit, huh? 73.8. So maybe it's about 73, and like I said, 72 to 74, right? That's good for my cherry shrimp. It's not good for my Epistogramma. Stand at 73.8, so that must be what the cherry shrimp tank is at, despite the fact that the thermometer in the cherry shrimp tank says 66.1. Well, I had done a video a long time ago about how inaccurate some of these tools in the aquarium hobby can be. But that's pretty wild. Two thermometers in the same tank are reading almost 8 degrees difference. So these thermometers are, at least in my fish room, are really not meant to tell you an accurate temperature of the actual tank. It's more of a visual reference for me to look at quickly every day, and I know that if, we'll use that cherry shrimp tank as an example, You know, this thermometer always reads around 66.2. Whether or not it's actually 66 doesn't matter. What does matter is that if I come down here tomorrow and see that that thermometer says 80 degrees all of a sudden, I know the heater is malfunctioning and stuck in the on position and going to cook the shrimp. Similarly, this tank yesterday said 84 degrees and now it says 73 degrees, even though the heater back there, you can see the indicator light is on. So obviously something is wrong there too. Again, I really don't care if the exact temperature is 73 or 83 or what it was. The exact temperature is important, but I know I was in the right range for a very long time. I set a baseline, and for months and months and months it's been okay. So the fact that it changed so dramatically is just a quick visual indicator for me that something is wrong. If that thermometer typically reads 100 degrees and then and then tomorrow it reads 70 degrees, again, I know something is wrong, even though it's not really going from 100 degrees to 70 degrees. So, while I know all these thermometers are extremely inaccurate, that's the reason why I keep them in each tank, because if I didn't have a thermometer in here, and if I didn't walk over and actually put my hand in the tank and go, wow, that feels ice cold, I wouldn't have known there's a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop that fish out of there into a specimen container, and I'm going to allow a real long time for him to float and acclimate temperature-wise into that other tank. I'll do that at the end of the video. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? What else? I had some other ideas, but this video is already running long, so maybe I'll make this the end of the video. I'm going to go ahead and scoop up that fish, put him into a specimen container, and see what I can do. Take a quick look at the rams quick. Man, I love German blue rams. There's a whole lot of activity in this tank right now. I wonder if we're getting ready to see some spawning. I had seen some more eggs over here in this tank a week or two ago, but they didn't make it very far yet again. I'm trying a couple of new clay dishes here. These are a little bit bigger than my old ones. Let's see if I can find an old one. Here's the ones I took out of the tank compared to the size of the one that's in the tank now. So I put a couple in that way, and then I put a couple in upside down. Maybe not in this tank. Yeah, in that tank. There's one upside down in case a fish decides that that surface is better. Is that eggs on there now, or is that sand? That must be sand. I left one of the small ones in there in case the fish decides they want a smaller spawning area. We got what looks like two females maybe going at it over here. And that's that standard aggression that you'll see from cichlids and specifically from rams. And you know, there's males who will assert their dominance. There's females who will fight over breeding spots. And cichlids in general can just be territorial and aggressive, and they'll flare out their fins and try to look as big as they can. And then they'll start lip locking sometimes, sort of beating each other up a little bit. And then every once in a while, it'll look like they're about to throw down for World War III, and then they'll just swim away from one another. And the big thing with rams and cichlids is that you want lots of hiding places. You want to have sight breaks. You want the fish to be able to retreat somewhere where the aggressive fish might lose sight of them. You know, if one fish looks up and sees another ram and thinks they're coming in on that territory, they're going to want to protect it. But if they look up and if they're distracted by a bunch of driftwood and some plants and things like that, you know, then they might not bother chasing that other fish. So having a lot of natural decor, even unnatural decor, the fish don't really care if it's real driftwood or if it's a pirate ship or a castle or, you know, a treasure chest that bubbles up and down every couple of seconds. But man, I love watching these guys. Anyway, let me put the camera down and go move that Episto. So that's probably it for now, guys. Comment, rate, subscribe. Share this video if you like what I'm doing. Tell all your friends, and I will see you guys next time. so we got the fish out of that tank after I pulled all the decor out and threw it into the bucket to get it out of the way. And there is the fish right now that I am now very concerned about. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the specimen container and we're going to float it like that on the interior of the new tank into which it's going to go. And I'm going to let that thing acclimate temperature-wise. I'm going to let that specimen container, that dip and pour, I'm going to let that sit in this tank for at least a half an hour like that before I actually release the fish into the tank. Now what I'll do is, I've got new heaters somewhere. I'll drop a new heater into this tank and make sure I have it calibrated and set so we can get to the right temperature. I'll do a real big water change on this thing, and that'll be that. Alright, later guys.